It becomes about decoding digital signals because there's so much information your customers are sharing with you that you probably don't even realize. Very simple question. How many of you have Google Analytics installed on your website? How many know if you have Google? How many have no clue? Like somebody in my organization may or may not know that. But it's a very basic way to start. If you have Google Analytics installed, there's a lot of information that gives you alone. Two things you can look at that'll tell you a lot about the people visiting your site. One is, how many visits are you getting from mobile visitors? If you get 50% or more of your traffic through mobile visitors, but you don't have a mobile site, guess what? You're missing out on half of your potential customer base. It's a very simple signal to decode. The second thing you look at is your bounce rate. That essentially tells you how quickly someone comes to your website and leaves. If it's very high, say varying on industry, but if it's about 60% or higher, that means people are landing on your site but leaving too quickly before they're actually looking at anything. You know, your biggest competitor in the digital space is the back button. It's the back button when people land and they feel like they're not finding what they're looking for. That says you have a conversion problem, or where you're getting traffic from isn't the qualified traffic you're looking for. As you get more advanced, there's more digital signals you can use. There's companies that with softwares that allow you to look at IP addresses, right? What companies are looking at your website? So then your salespeople can be more targeted in contacting those companies and saying, oh, and it happens all the time. You have a client who uses a software like this, and their salespeople will call, and the customer will say, oh, I was just on your website 2 days ago. You must have read my mind. Or there's retargeting. How many are familiar with retargeting? Retargeting is very, very powerful for a few of you. So what retargeting essentially is if you have a certain program on your, let's say you go visit a site and it puts a cookie on your browser. And these cookies are harmless cookies, not edible, but harmless. And essentially they have a program with big sites. If you go to like MSN or Yahoo or all these bigger sites and you start to see the ad, have you ever done this, gone to a site and you go to different places and you start to see their ad everywhere? They're retargeting you. That's also a great strategy to use though, especially if you want to have repeat visitors and you have a company where it takes multiple touch points to make that sale. Great way to keep people coming back. Also makes you look like a much bigger company than you might be. So people say, oh my God, most people don't know what retargeting is, right? So they think it's either A, serendipity. That's so cool, I was just thinking about it, here it is. Or two, they think, wow, you guys are really everywhere. That's really neat. Either way, it's a great way to be relevant and bring people back to where you want them to be. This is especially important in how many devices people use now. I know there's a lot of talk about how there's going to be sort of one device to rule them all, but my honest opinion is, at least for the next 5 years, we're going to be working in a world where there's multiple devices. This is never more true than in the Super Bowl. How many of you guys watched the Super Bowl? Yeah. What was really funny was people were watching it on their television, but they were checking email for work on their next day on their computer, texting with their friends, right? Well, maybe even having Twitter open on the iPad. So now when someone connects with your information, when you're doing something, whether it's a campaign or an ad or whatever it may be, the chances are that they're using it in conjunction with multiple devices. So how do you leverage that? If you ever watched a show on USA Today, they do a good job because they'll say, you know, for your second screen pleasure, we have this. Or they have games to engage, or they've got some other way to make the most of it. So you try to get people not only on, on multiple touch points, but through multiple platforms that they may be using. Here's some examples, I think, of good software that, again, highlights this idea of decoding digital signals. This is by HubSpot, and it's actually called Signals. But what's neat is this allows you to track who opens your email, how long they spend with that email, and it gives you that feedback. So it actually tells you, hey, Bob opened this email, looked at your proposal, got to page 2, and then stopped. So when you follow up with Bob, you know exactly how far he was in the proposal, or if he even opened it at all. That allows you to be a much better marketer, allows you to be much more relevant, right? When you send an email, it's not, hey, I was wondering if you got my email or not. It's, hey, I know you got the email, or I know you haven't had a chance to open that email. I'm sending it again, or whatever it is. It allows you to be much more specific. Here's another one called Gauging. And what's neat is this company looks at privately held companies, but also the Fortune 500, and you can select sales triggers. So if you know that, hey, our ideal customers, it's sort of a trigger for them when they close a round of funding or when they hire a new CMO or whatever it may be that triggers your purchase for them to make a purchase with your company, you can set that up and it'll send you an alert when that happens. So now, again, more about being relevant and within context. You're actually reaching people when they're like, oh, that's perfect. Because how many times have you guys been in that place and it's like, oh, I totally forgot that you do that. Right? I needed that last week. Oh, or if you just contacted us a month ago when we shifted this, that would have been a perfect time. So much of selling, as we know, is right time, right place. Would you guys agree? Right time, right place. What's great about digital signals and really using the web in this way is it allows you to decode and figure out what is that right time and right place. And you're not guessing anymore. So I call this strategic serendipity. Right? You're not guessing anymore. You're actually able to listen to conversations and figure this out.